3 in the morning, and I'm sitting in my kitchen like some kind of insomniac detective, staring at the granite countertops I personally selected for this house. Funny how everything looks different when your world shifts sideways. The coffee maker hums its familiar tune, and somewhere upstairs my wife Elara sleeps the peaceful sleep of someone who thinks they're getting away with something. I always prided myself on being observant. You don't become a successful architect by missing details. Every line, every angle, every shadow matters when you're designing something meant to last. But somehow, I missed the signs that my marriage was crumbling faster than a building with no foundation. The realization hit me yesterday evening when Elara came home from another girl's night with that particular glow she used to have only for me. Her phone buzzed constantly during dinner, and she clutched it like a lifeline, fingers dancing across the screen with secretive little smiles. "Work emergency?" I asked, cutting into the salmon she'd barely touched. "Just Leah being dramatic about her boyfriend again," she said, not looking up. But Leah's name wasn't on the screen. I caught a glimpse of Damon before Elara tilted the phone away. Damon Cross, my business partner at Paragon Design. The same Damon who'd been working late nights recently, the same nights Elara claimed to be out with her friends. Now, sitting here in the pre-dawn darkness, I sip my coffee and think about patterns. In architecture, when you notice one structural flaw, you inspect everything else because problems rarely travel alone. My marriage, it seems, follows the same principle. Elara's phone sits on the bathroom counter upstairs, charging. She always forgets to bring it to bed, a habit I used to find endearing. Tonight, it might be the key to understanding just how deep this betrayal goes. I climb the stairs quietly, my bare feet silent on the hardwood I installed myself 3 years ago. Our bedroom door is slightly ajar, and I can hear Elara's steady breathing. She's always been a heavy sleeper, especially after her evening wine ritual. The phone screen lights up with a gentle tap. No passcode. She's never been security conscious. The message thread with Damon is right there, and what I read makes my stomach clench like a fist. "Can't wait for tomorrow night. Tell Kellen you're visiting your sister again." He's so clueless. Sometimes I think he loves his blueprints more than me. After we close the Morrison deal, we should celebrate properly. Maybe take that yacht trip we talked about. The yacht was never for him anyway. He gets seasick, remember? I scroll up, finding weeks of messages, intimate details about their encounters, mocking observations about my work habits, plans for a future that apparently doesn't include me. The worst part isn't the betrayal itself, it's how casual they are about it, how little they seem to think of me. My hands remain steady as I screenshot everything. 23 years in architecture taught me to document first, react later. Every text, every photo, every casual mention of hotel rooms and secret meetings gets saved to a cloud account Elara doesn't know exists. The Morrison deal they mentioned is our biggest project yet, a luxury resort worth $12 million. Damon and I have been working on it for 8 months, and we're supposed to present the final proposal next week. The irony isn't lost on me that they're planning to celebrate my professional success with their personal betrayal. I place the phone back exactly where I found it and return to the kitchen. The coffee has gone cold, but I drink it anyway, staring out the window at the marina where expensive boats bob in their slips like sleeping giants. Elara wanted a house near the water when we moved here 5 years ago. "Imagine the parties we could throw," she said, eyes bright with social ambition. "All the right people live near the marina." The right people. Elara's always been fascinated by status, by the appearance of success. I built my firm from nothing, working 16-hour days and sleeping in my office more nights than I care to remember. When we met, she was a receptionist at a competing firm, beautiful and charming and seemingly impressed by my determination to create something lasting. Now I wonder if she was ever impressed by me, or just by what I could provide. My phone buzzes with a text from Julia, my accountant, and the closest thing I have to a best friend. She's an early riser like me, often sending work messages before dawn. Coffee? Need to discuss the Morrison contract details before Monday's presentation. I text back, my place, 20 minutes, bring the files. If Damon and Elara want to play games with my business and my marriage, they're about to learn that I didn't build a multi-million-dollar firm by being passive. Every building starts with a foundation, and every demolition starts with understanding exactly what you're tearing down. Julia arrives precisely 20 minutes later, her silver hair pulled back in its usual no-nonsense bun, carrying a leather briefcase that's older than my marriage. She's been my accountant for 15 years, and if anyone can help me understand the financial implications of what I discovered, it's her. You look like hell, she says, settling into my kitchen island with her usual bluntness. Rough night. I need you to pull all financial records related to Elara's accounts, credit cards, everything. Also, anything showing Damon's access to company funds or client information. Julia's eyebrows rise slightly, but she doesn't ask questions. That's why I trust her. How far back? 6 months, maybe longer. She opens her laptop and starts typing. This is about the Morrison deal? Partially. I think there might be some irregularities I need to understand. For the next hour, we go through spreadsheets and bank statements. The picture that emerges makes my jaw tighten. Expensive dinners charged to Elara's credit card on nights she claimed to be home. Hotel rooms booked on weekends when I was traveling for work. Most damning, several transfers from Damon's business account to Elara's personal account, labeled as consulting fees. Kellen, Julia says quietly, these consulting payments don't match any work orders in our system, and some of these hotel charges coincide with your business trips to Seattle and Portland. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I lean back in my chair, processing the implications. They weren't just having an affair. They were financing it with money from my business, and they were deliberate about timing their encounters when I'd be out of town. There's something else, Julia continues, her voice careful. Damon's been accessing client files he shouldn't have clearance for, including preliminary Morrison documents that should have required your approval. The pieces click together like a blueprint finally making sense. This isn't just about my marriage falling apart. Damon's been positioning himself to cut me out of my own business, and Elara's been helping him do it. My phone chimes with a text from Elara. Morning, honey. Meeting Leah for brunch, then shopping. Don't wait up for dinner. Girls' night again. Love you. I show the message to Julia, who snorts. Girls' night on a Thursday? Apparently Leah's very needy, I say, my voice dry as desert sand. Julia closes her laptop and looks at me with the expression she usually reserves for clients who've made spectacularly bad financial decisions. What are you going to do? I stand up and walk to the window, watching the morning sun reflect off the water. Somewhere out there, in one of those expensive marina slips, sits the yacht Elara mentioned in her texts with Damon. The yacht that was never for me anyway. I'm going to give them exactly what they want, I say. A yacht trip they'll never forget. The Paragon design offices occupy the top 3 floors of a glass tower downtown, with windows offering a panoramic view of the harbor. I built this company from a single room above a coffee shop, and every polished surface represents years of 18-hour days and calculated risks that paid off. Damon's office sits directly across from mine, separated by the open workspace where our team of 12 architects and designers collaborate on projects that reshape the city's skyline. When I hired him 4 years ago, he brought connections and charm that complemented my technical skills perfectly. Now, watching him through his glass walls as he leans back in his leather chair, phone pressed to his ear with that familiar smug smile, I see him differently. He's talking to someone, gesturing with his free hand in the animated way he does when he's trying to impress. Probably Elara planning their next encounter while I'm supposed to be focused on work. "Morning, Kellen." Paul Murphy drops into the chair across from my desk, coffee in hand. Paul's my oldest friend, a former police detective who now runs private security for several downtown firms, including mine. He's got the kind of weathered face that's seen everything twice, and the dry humor of someone who's learned not to be surprised by human nature. "You look like you've been chewing on something unpleasant," he continues, studying my expression with cop instincts that never fully retired. "Just thinking about structural integrity," I say. "How sometimes what looks solid from the outside is completely rotten underneath." Paul's eyes narrow slightly. He's known me long enough to recognize when I'm speaking in metaphors. "Architecture problems?" "Personal ones. Tell me, if someone wanted to document suspicious behavior without breaking any laws, what would you recommend?" "Hypothetically?" "Hypothetically." Paul sets down his coffee and leans forward. "Depends on what kind of behavior we're talking about. If it's happening in public places, on property you own, or with equipment you pay for, documentation gets a lot easier." I nod toward Damon's office. "Company phones, company credit cards, company property." "Ah." Paul's expression shifts to something I recognize from his detective days. "How suspicious are we talking?" "Suspicious enough that I need to understand the full scope before I decide what to do about it." Paul studies me for a long moment, then pulls out his phone. "I know a guy who specializes in corporate security audits, very thorough, very discreet. If there's anything to find in your company's digital footprint, he'll find it." "How long would something like that take?" "For a firm this size, maybe 3 days, assuming you provide full access to systems and accounts." I consider this. 3 days would put us right at the Morrison presentation, which Damon's been pushing to handle solo. Originally, we planned to present together, but yesterday he suggested I stay back to handle other client meetings while he takes the lead. "Set it up," I tell Paul. "Full audit, everything." Paul makes a call, speaking in the shorthand of people who've worked together before. When he hangs up, he's grinning. "Marcus Webb, best in the business. He'll be here this afternoon to start the preliminary review." "Marcus Webb?" "Former FBI cybercrimes. Now he makes 3 times his government salary helping businesses understand where their vulnerabilities are. Very educational." Through my office window, I watch Damon end his call and immediately start typing on his computer, still smiling. Whatever conversation he just finished left him in an excellent mood. My phone buzzes with a text from Elara. "Lunch canceled. Leah's having a crisis. Rain check on dinner too. Don't wait up. XOXO." I show the message to Paul, who reads it with the expression of someone examining evidence. "Leah's having a lot of crises lately. Apparently she's very high maintenance. Or very fictional." At exactly 2 p.m., Marcus Webb arrives carrying a laptop bag and the quiet confidence of someone who's seen every kind of digital deception. He's younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with the focused intensity of a surgeon preparing for a complex operation. "Paul says you need a comprehensive security audit," he says, settling into my conference room. "Standard procedure is to examine all company devices, accounts, and access logs for irregularities." How comprehensive? Every email, every file transfer, every login from every device connected to your network. If someone's been accessing information they shouldn't have, or using company resources inappropriately, I'll find it. I provide him with administrative access to our systems, watching as he connects his laptop and begins running programs I don't recognize. Within minutes, data streams across his screen in patterns that look like digital DNA. "This might take several hours," he says without looking up. "I'll work through the evening if necessary." "Take whatever time you need." I return to my office trying to focus on legitimate work while Marcus performs his digital autopsy on my business. Damon's still in his office, but now he's on his phone again, this time with his door closed. The conversation looks intense, and he keeps glancing toward my office. At 4:30, my phone rings. Elara's name appears on the screen. "Hey, honey," she says, her voice bright with artificial cheer. "Change of plans again. Leah wants to drive up to Portland for the weekend. Girls' trip, very last minute. You don't mind, do you?" Portland, where I was supposed to travel next week for a client meeting that got postponed, where Damon suggested we should scout potential expansion opportunities. "Of course not," I say. "Have fun. Send Leah my regards." "You're the best. Love you." The line goes quiet, and I sit back in my chair, piecing together their strategy. They're getting bolder, more careless. Elara's not even bothering to make her lies believable anymore. At 6 p.m., most of the office has emptied out, but Marcus is still working, his fingers dancing across the keyboard with mechanical precision. Damon left an hour ago, but not before stopping by my office to mention he'd be unreachable for the weekend due to a family emergency. "Family emergency in Portland?" I asked. He paused just long enough for me to notice. "Yeah, my aunt's in the hospital. Very sudden. I hope she recovers quickly." "Thanks. I'll probably drive up tonight, beat the traffic." Now, watching the parking garage through my window, I see Damon's silver BMW pull out onto the street, heading north toward the interstate. 15 minutes later, Elara's white Lexus follows the same route. Marcus looks up from his laptop. "I'm finding some interesting patterns here. Want to see what I've discovered so far?" I walk over to his workstation, where multiple windows display email threads, file access logs, and financial transaction records. "Your partner's been busy," Marcus says, highlighting several entries. "Accessing client files outside normal business hours, copying documents to external drives, and sending emails to accounts outside your company network." "What kind of emails?" "Preliminary project details, client contact information, and what looks like pricing strategies for active bids." Marcus clicks through several examples. This Morrison Resort project, for instance. He's been sharing details with someone at Hartwell & Associates. Hartwell & Associates is our biggest competitor, the firm that's bid against us on every major project for the past 3 years. They've been undercutting our proposals with suspicious accuracy, and now I understand why. "How long has this been going on?" "Based on the logs, approximately 4 months, but the activity's increased significantly in the past 2 weeks. 4 months ago, Damon started pushing for more access to client files, claiming he needed to better understand our project pipeline. I granted that access because I trusted him, because partnerships require trust to function. There's more," Marcus continues. "Someone's been using company credit cards for personal expenses. Hotels, restaurants, travel bookings that don't match any business trips in your calendar." He shows me a list of charges that correspond exactly with Elara's mysterious absences. Expensive dinners at restaurants I've never been to, hotel rooms in cities where we have no clients, flights booked under Damon's name but with companion tickets purchased separately. "They're not even trying to hide it," I say, more to myself than to Marcus. "People get careless when they think they're not being watched. Your partner's been accessing these accounts from his personal laptop, probably assuming company monitoring only covers office computers." I study the evidence accumulating on Marcus's screen. Email threads discussing my retirement from active project management, financial records showing systematic theft of company resources, and file transfers that constitute corporate espionage. "Can you document all of this in a format that would hold up in court?" Marcus nods. "Complete forensic report, chain of custody documentation, everything admissible. Should be ready by Monday morning. Make it Sunday evening. I have a presentation to prepare for." As Marcus continues his work, I walk to the window and look out at the harbor. Somewhere out there, Damon and Elara are probably celebrating their successful deception, planning their future with money stolen from my business and confidence built on lies. They think they're playing chess while I'm playing checkers. They're about to discover that I've been playing a different game entirely. My phone chimes with a text from an unknown number. Yacht available for charter this weekend. Premium package includes full crew and catering. Interested? I smile and text back. Very interested. Let's discuss details. Sunday evening arrives with the kind of crisp autumn air that makes the harbor lights shimmer like scattered diamonds. I'm sitting in my office reviewing Marcus's completed forensic report when Paul arrives carrying takeout containers and wearing the expression of someone who's about to deliver unpleasant news. Chinese food and bad news, he says, setting the containers on my desk. Which do you want first? The news. I'm not sure I have an appetite yet. Paul settles into the chair across from me and pulls out a manila folder. I did some digging into your partner's background, the kind of checking you probably should have done before making him a partner. That bad? Damon Cross has a pattern. This isn't his first time playing the inside game. Paul opens the folder and spreads out several documents. 3 previous jobs, 3 previous partnerships that ended badly. Always the same story. Charming guy comes in, gains trust, then systematically undermines the business while positioning himself to take over or steal clients. I examine the papers Paul's assembled. Employment records, court documents from civil suits, and what looks like a private investigator's report from 2 years ago. His last partnership was with a firm in San Francisco, Paul continues. Sound familiar? He seduced the senior partner's wife, convinced her to pressure her husband into giving him more control, then attempted a hostile takeover when the partner discovered the affair. Attempted? The partner was smarter than Damon expected, documented everything, built a legal case, and destroyed him professionally. Damon left California owing $500,000 in legal fees and settlement costs. I lean back in my chair, processing this information. So he came here looking for a fresh start. He came here looking for a new target. And based on what Marcus found in your systems, he's been planning this since day one. Paul pulls out another document, this one more recent. I also had someone look into your wife's activities. The credit card records Marcus found are just the tip of the iceberg. The document shows a detailed timeline of Elara's movements over the past 6 months. Hotel visits, restaurant reservations, shopping trips that coincide perfectly with Damon's schedule. But there's something else. Meeting locations that aren't romantic restaurants or hotels. She's been meeting with people from Hartwell and Associates, Paul says, pointing to several entries. Not just Damon. She's been having lunch with their senior partners, their project managers, even their administrative staff. She's been recruiting for them. More than that. Based on the timing, she's been feeding them information about your personal schedule, your client meetings, even your project deadlines. They've been using her as an intelligence source. The scope of the betrayal hits me like a physical blow. This isn't just an affair or even simple corporate espionage. It's a coordinated effort to destroy my business from the inside while stealing everything I've built. There's one more thing, Paul says, his voice careful. The yacht charter you arranged for this weekend? Damon and your wife aren't the only ones who'll be there. He shows me a photograph taken with a telephoto lens, showing Damon and Elara boarding a luxury yacht with 3 other people I recognize, senior partners from Hartwell and Associates. They're celebrating, I say. They're planning. My source at the marina says they booked the yacht for a business strategy session. Apparently, they think they've successfully positioned themselves to steal your biggest clients and destroy your reputation. I stand up and walk to the window, looking out at the marina where their celebration is taking place. The yacht they're on is a 90-foot cruiser called Ambition, which seems appropriate. Marcus finished his report, I tell Paul. Want to see how deep this goes? I pull up Marcus's findings on my computer, walking Paul through the evidence of systematic theft, corporate espionage, and fraud. The financial damage alone exceeds $200,000, but the potential loss of clients and reputation could destroy everything I've spent 20 years building. This is enough to put Damon in prison, Paul says after reviewing the evidence. Prison's too easy. I want them to understand exactly what they've lost before they face any legal consequences. My phone buzzes with a text from Elara. Having amazing time with Leah. Weather's perfect, staying another day. Miss you. I show the message to Paul, who shakes his head. She's not even on the same planet as reality anymore. That's about to change. I pull up the contact information for the yacht charter company and make a call. The conversation is brief, but productive. When I hang up, Paul's watching me with the expression of someone who recognizes a plan forming. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time for a surprise party. Monday morning arrives with fog rolling in from the harbor, giving the city a dreamlike quality that seems appropriate for what I'm about to do. The Morrison presentation is scheduled for 10 a.m., and Damon still believes he'll be handling it solo while I deal with other priorities. At 8:30, I call Elara. She answers on the fourth ring, her voice slightly breathless. Hey, honey, just getting ready to drive back. Traffic's terrible up here. Actually, change of plans. I need you to meet me at the Hartwell and Associates building downtown. There's been a development with the Morrison project. A pause. What kind of development? The kind that requires both of us to be there. Can you make it by 10? Yes, of course. Is everything okay? Everything's perfect. See you there. I hang up and immediately call Damon. His phone goes to voicemail, so I leave a message. Change of venue for the Morrison presentation. Hartwell and Associates building, 10th floor conference room. They want to discuss a potential collaboration. See you there. Next, I call Julia and Marcus, asking them to meet me at the Hartwell building with all documentation we've prepared. Finally, I call Paul. Remember that surprise party I mentioned? It starts in 90 minutes. The Hartwell and Associates building is a steel and glass monument to corporate success, the kind of structure designed to intimidate clients and competitors alike. I arrive at 9:45 carrying a leather portfolio that contains everything Marcus and Paul discovered about Damon's activities. The 10th floor conference room overlooks the harbor, with floor-to-ceiling windows that provide a perfect view of the marina, where ambition sits at its slip. I can see figures moving around on deck, probably cleaning up from last night's celebration. At exactly 10 a.m., Elara arrives looking confused and slightly panicked. She's dressed in the outfit she claims to have worn for her weekend with Leah, but it's clearly expensive and new. Kellen, what's going on? Why are we meeting here instead of your office? Patience. We're waiting for the rest of our party. 5 minutes later, Damon walks in looking confident and relaxed, carrying his own portfolio and wearing the smile of someone who thinks he's about to close the deal of his career. Kellen, I thought you were handling other meetings today. What's the change in strategy? Just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page, I say, gesturing for them to sit. Elara and Damon take seats across from each other, and I notice the careful way they avoid making eye contact. Professional discretion, or so they think. At 10:10, Julia and Marcus enter the conference room, followed by Paul and 3 people I don't recognize, but who are carrying official-looking documents. I'm sorry, Damon says, his confidence wavering slightly. I thought this was a client presentation. It is, I reply, opening my portfolio. But not the kind you were expecting. I spread out the first set of documents, printouts of the email exchanges between Damon and Hartwell and Associates, showing the systematic theft of client information and project details. Elara's face goes pale as she recognizes some of the dates and details. Damon's expression shifts from confusion to alarm as he realizes what he's looking at. This is a presentation about corporate espionage, I continue, adding the financial records showing misuse of company credit cards and resources, about systematic theft of proprietary information, about fraud. Kellen, Damon starts, but I hold up a hand. I'm not finished. This is also a presentation about adultery, conspiracy, and the systematic destruction of a 20-year marriage and business partnership. I place the photographs from the yacht on the table, showing Damon and Elara with the Hartwell partners, along with timestamps that correspond exactly with Elara's claimed girls' weekends. The silence in the room is absolute. Elara stares at the photographs as if they're evidence of someone else's life, while Damon's face cycles through emotions like a malfunctioning traffic light. The question, I say, looking directly at both of them, is what we do next. The silence stretches for nearly a minute before Damon finds his voice. When he speaks, it's with the desperate confidence of someone trying to bluff their way out of checkmate. "These documents are taken out of context," he says, straightening his tie with hands that aren't quite steady. "Business communications, networking meetings, all perfectly legitimate." "Networking meetings," I repeat, my voice flat. "Is that what you call stealing client files and selling them to our competitors?" Elara finally speaks, her voice small and strained. "Kellen, I can explain." "Please do. Explain how a girls' weekend with Leah turned into a business strategy session on a yacht with our biggest competitors. I'm genuinely curious about the logistics." Paul steps forward and places a digital recorder on the table. "Before anyone says anything else, I should mention that this conversation is being documented, for legal purposes." Damon's eyes dart toward the door, but Marcus moves to block his path with the casual efficiency of someone accustomed to preventing people from leaving uncomfortable situations. "The yacht rental company was very cooperative," I continue, pulling out another set of documents. Detailed records of who boarded the vessel, what equipment was used, and what was discussed. Apparently, celebrating the successful sabotage of a business partnership requires excellent documentation. I place a transcript on the table, conversations recorded by the yacht's security system, which the rental company maintains for insurance purposes. The transcript shows Damon and Elara discussing timeline for my retirement from active business management, division of clients between Hartwell and a new firm they plan to establish, and specific strategies for undermining my relationships with key accounts. "This is illegal surveillance," Damon says, but his voice lacks conviction. "Actually, it's standard security protocol for luxury yacht rentals," Marcus replies. "All clearly disclosed in the rental agreement you signed. Audio and video monitoring of common areas to prevent theft and vandalism." Elara's hands shake as she reads the transcript. Her face has gone from pale to gray, and she keeps glancing at me as if hoping this is an elaborate practical joke. "The part I find most interesting," I say, turning to a highlighted section, "is the discussion about timing. How you plan to wait until after the Morrison contract was signed before making your move, using my work to establish credibility, then stealing the client relationships I spent years building." I look directly at Damon. 20 years I've been building this business. 20 years of 18-hour days, sleeping in the office, risking everything on projects that could make or break us. And you thought you could just walk in and take it. "You don't understand the pressure," Damon begins. "I understand perfectly. You're a parasite. This isn't your first time destroying someone else's business, is it?" I place Paul's research on the table, the documents showing Damon's pattern of infiltrating partnerships, seducing wives, and attempting hostile takeovers. San Francisco, Denver, Phoenix. 3 previous partnerships. 3 previous attempts at exactly this same strategy. The only difference is that this time, you picked someone who fights back. Elara's voice is barely a whisper. "Kellen, please let me explain." "Explain what? How you've been feeding confidential information to our competitors for 6 months? How you've been using our credit cards to finance your affair? Or how you convinced yourself that I wouldn't notice my own wife systematically destroying my life?" I stand up and walk to the window, looking out at the harbor where their celebration yacht sits like evidence of their arrogance. "The Morrison project," I continue without turning around, "was supposed to be presented this morning. Damon was going to handle it solo, establish himself as the primary contact, then gradually edge me out of my own business." I turn back to face them. Except the Morrison project doesn't exist. The confusion on their faces is almost comical. "I created it," I explain. Fake client, fake project, fake $12 million contract. Every detail you've been stealing and selling to Hartwell and Associates is completely fictional. Damon's face goes through several color changes as the implications hit him. For the past 2 months, you've been providing our competitors with detailed plans for a resort that will never be built, financial projections for a client who doesn't exist, and strategic information about a contract that was designed specifically to expose your theft. I sit back down and fold my hands on the table. Hartwell and Associates has been preparing a counter-proposal for a project that exists only in my imagination. They've allocated resources, adjusted their project timeline, and repositioned their team to compete for something that was never real. But the site visits, Elara says weakly. The client meetings, actors. The site is a piece of land I own personally, bought specifically for this purpose. The client representatives you met were people Paul hired to play roles. Every meeting, every phone call, every document was part of an elaborate test to see how far you'd go. The silence that follows is different from before. This isn't the silence of people caught off guard. It's the silence of people realizing they've been completely outmaneuvered. The real Morrison project, I continue, was presented last week to a different client entirely. A legitimate client who's already signed a contract worth $8 million. A contract that has nothing to do with either of you. I pull out the final document, a signed agreement with Morrison Development Group for a luxury condominium complex, dated 5 days ago. While you were celebrating your successful deception, I was actually closing the deal you thought you were stealing. Damon finally finds his voice. You can't prove any criminal intent, business communications, personal relationships. None of this is illegal. Theft of proprietary information is illegal. Fraud is illegal. Embezzlement is illegal. I gesture to the documents spread across the table. $200,000 in unauthorized charges to company accounts. Systematic theft of client information. Conspiracy to defraud. Paul steps forward again. The 3 gentlemen who came in with us are federal investigators. Corporate fraud, computer crimes, and conspiracy charges. They've been reviewing the evidence while we talked. For the first time, Damon looks genuinely frightened. Elara starts crying, not the elegant tears of someone seeking sympathy, but the ugly, desperate crying of someone whose world is collapsing. What do you want? Damon asks. I want you to understand what you've lost, I reply. Both of you. You had everything. Successful business, comfortable life, respect, security, and you threw it away for what? A few stolen moments and the fantasy of easy money? I stand up and gather the documents into my portfolio. Elara, you'll find divorce papers waiting at the house. The prenuptial agreement we signed is very clear about adultery and financial misconduct. You get nothing. Kellen, please. Damon, your partnership in Paragon Design is terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings, and your access to all accounts and systems has been revoked. I walk toward the door, then pause. The yacht rental company sends their regards, by the way. Apparently, you left quite a mess on deck. They're billing you for cleaning and damages. As I reach the door, Elara calls out desperately, What about us? What about everything we built together? I turn back one final time, looking at the woman I thought I knew, sitting next to the man who tried to destroy everything I'd worked for. We never built anything together, Elara. I built something, and you tried to tear it down. The difference is that I'm better at building than you are at destroying. The last thing I hear as the door closes behind me is the sound of Elara's crying, and the federal investigators beginning to read Damon his rights. 3 hours later, I'm standing on the deck of my own yacht, a 36-foot sailing vessel I bought 2 years ago, but rarely had time to use. The afternoon sun cuts through the morning fog, turning the harbor into a canvas of gold and blue that reminds me why I chose to build my life near the water. Paul joins me at the bow, carrying 2 bottles of beer and wearing the satisfied expression of someone who's just watched justice served with precision. Federal investigators moved fast, he says, handing me a beer. Damon's already been processed and released on bail. Elara's at the house with a moving truck, supervised by my security team to make sure she only takes what's legally hers. Which isn't much, given the prenuptial agreement. Her lawyer's going to argue emotional distress, claim she was manipulated by Damon into participating in the fraud. I take a long drink of beer and watch a seagull dive for fish near the marina entrance. Might work, if she hadn't been the one initiating contact with Hartwell and Associates. Marcus found emails going back 7 months before she ever met Damon. She was planning this longer than the affair? She was planning something. I think she started by trying to gather information she could sell independently, then Damon provided a more sophisticated framework for the operation. Paul shakes his head. 20 years of marriage, and you never suspected she was capable of this? 20 years of marriage, and I never really knew her at all. My phone buzzes with a text from Julia. Hartwell and Associates issued a statement disavowing any knowledge of industrial espionage. They're claiming Damon approached them as a potential whistleblower, reporting unethical practices at Paragon Design. I show the message to Paul, who laughs. Classy. Throw him under the bus and claim they were the victims. They probably were, in a way. Damon fed them false information about a fake project, cost them time and resources preparing for something that didn't exist. Their reputation in the industry is going to suffer when this becomes public. Any regrets about the elaborate deception? I consider this question while watching the activity around the marina. Boat owners preparing for afternoon sales, couples walking along the pier, families enjoying the kind of peaceful Sunday I haven't experienced in months. No regrets. If I'd confronted them directly, they would have denied everything, destroyed evidence, and probably found a way to turn it back on me. This way, they convicted themselves with their own actions. Another text arrives, this one from an unknown number. Mr. Brooks, this is Leah Martinez, Elara's friend. I need to speak with you about what's been happening. There are things you need to know. I show the message to Paul. Think it's legitimate? Only one way to find out, but I'd meet in a public place with witnesses. I text back suggesting a coffee shop near the marina, and Leah agrees to meet in 30 minutes. The coffee shop sits on a pier extending into the harbor, with outdoor seating that provides clear sightlines in all directions. Leah arrives exactly on time, looking nervous and carrying a large purse that she clutches like a shield. She's younger than I expected, maybe late 20s, with the kind of carefully maintained appearance that suggests she takes her role as Elara's friend seriously. But her eyes are red from crying, and her hands shake slightly as she orders coffee. Thank you for meeting me, she says once we're seated at a corner table. I wasn't sure you'd want to talk to anyone associated with Elara right now. Depends on what you have to say. Leah opens her purse and pulls out a small digital recorder. Elara asked me to lie for her, to provide alibis for her affairs and business meetings. I went along with it because she's my friend, but I recorded our conversations because I was worried about getting in legal trouble. She places the recorder on the table between us. There are things on here that show this goes back much further than you probably realize. How much further? Almost 3 years, since before she met Damon. Leah presses play, and Elara's voice fills the space between us, discussing plans to leverage Kellen's success and position myself for financial independence. The conversations reveal a level of calculation and long-term planning that makes the affair with Damon seem almost incidental. She was looking for ways to monetize her access to your business long before Damon provided the expertise to actually do it, Leah explains. The affair was just a convenient cover for the real operation. The recordings continue, showing Elara's frustration with my work schedule, her resentment of my success, and her growing conviction that she deserved a larger share of what I'd built. Why are you showing me this? I ask when the recordings end. Because she tried to involve me in the fraud. She wanted me to apply for a job at your company, to be another inside source of information. Leah's voice is barely above a whisper. I realized that if she'd betray you after 20 years of marriage, she'd certainly betray a friend when it became convenient. I study her face, looking for signs of deception or hidden agenda. What do you want in return for this information? Nothing. I just thought you should know that this wasn't a crime of passion or opportunity. It was a deliberate, long-term plan to steal everything you'd worked for. Paul, who's been listening silently, finally speaks. Are you willing to provide this testimony to federal investigators? Leah nods. I've already contacted them. My lawyer says cooperation might help if they decide to investigate my role as an unwilling accomplice. After Leah leaves, Paul and I sit in silence, watching the afternoon light change the color of the water from blue to green to gold. 3 years, Paul says finally. She was planning this for 3 years. Makes me wonder what I missed, what signs I ignored because I was too focused on work. Or maybe there weren't any signs to miss. Some people are just better at hiding who they really are. My phone rings. Julia's name appears on the screen. The federal investigators want to meet tomorrow morning, she says without preamble. They're expanding the investigation based on new evidence, and they need your cooperation for the prosecution. What kind of cooperation? Detailed testimony about the business relationship, the fake Morrison project, and the systematic theft of company resources. They're building cases for fraud, conspiracy, and computer crimes. How long will this take? Months, probably. But Kellen, there's something else. The investigators found evidence that Damon was planning to do more than just steal your clients. What do you mean? He was setting up a scenario to frame you for the fraud he was committing. False documents showing you authorizing the illegal activities, backdated emails, forged signatures. If his plan had worked, you'd be facing criminal charges while he took over the business. The scope of the betrayal continues to expand, like ripples from a stone thrown into still water. What started as a simple affair has revealed itself as an elaborate conspiracy designed not just to steal my business, but to destroy my life completely. Julia, I want you to prepare a complete financial audit of the company. Everything, going back 5 years. If there are other irregularities, other thefts I haven't discovered, I want to know about them. Already started. Should have preliminary results by tomorrow afternoon. As the sun sets over the harbor, painting the sky in shades of orange and red, I remain on the pier, thinking about the yacht Elara mentioned in her text messages. The yacht that was never for me anyway. She was right about that. The yacht was never for me, because I never needed expensive symbols to prove my worth. I built my success through work, through integrity, through the careful construction of something meant to last. But the reckoning, the moment when actions meet consequences, when deception collides with truth, that was always meant for me. That was always mine to deliver. Tomorrow, I'll meet with federal investigators and help them build the case that will send Damon to prison and ensure that Elara faces the full legal consequences of her choices. Tomorrow, I'll begin the process of rebuilding my business and my life without the people who tried to destroy both. Tonight, I'll sail my own yacht into the harbor, under stars that have watched over this water for millennia, carrying the satisfaction of someone who built something beautiful and defended it successfully against those who would tear it down. The yacht was never for them anyway. It was always for me.